Yo, what's going on? It's Coach Jones here for another Lead Up Talk. I want to talk about a topic that really goes in conjunction with my last video, The Manufactured Life, where we need to connect with God, who is the manufacturer of life, in order to understand how we operate the vehicles which we have, which is life. And the topic today will coincide, is not intentional, but it happened this way. The other day I was listening to a book by John Eldridge called Walking with God. I'm at the beginning stages, but thus far it's resonated with me. And one of the things that he says in chapter 1, I'm gonna read from chapter 10 in John just so you can see what Mr. Eldridge is talking about in his book, but then I'm gonna read a quote from the book. In John chapter 10, he says, "Very truly I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate, but climbs in some other way is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he brought out all of his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice." Then in verse 7, he says, "Therefore, Jesus said again, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. And all who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full," or in other versions, have it in abundance. So in that is that's what he pulls from in what he's about to say, of which I'm about to read. He says, "The sheep live in dangerous country. The only way that they can move securely in and out and find pasture is to follow their shepherd closely. Yet most Christians assume that the way to find the life God has for us is A, believe in God, B, be a good person, C, he will deliver the rest. A plus B equals C. But Jesus says, no, there is more to the equation. I do want life for you to the full, but you have to realize there is a thief. He's trying to destroy you. There are false shepherds too. Don't listen to them. Don't just wander off looking for pasture. You need to do more than believe in me. You have to stay close to me. Listen to my voice. Let me lead." And that is the topic. Let me lead. Are we truly letting God lead? Or are we following what we determine to be good, or what has been put in front of us to be good? A lot of times, I know in what I read, he says Christians, but apply this to people, because we hear people all day say, in order for the goodness of life, or if they believe in afterlife, to make it there is just being a good person. And while that is partly true, it ain't the whole thing. Jesus clearly indicates that he is the only way. He clearly indicates that believing in him is a part of it, right? But a lot of people stop there, and we don't continue to listen. So for those who just feel like being a good person is a thing, my question would be, well, what is your basis? Is it based on what you feel? Is it based on what you experience? Is it based on what things in life tell you, what people tell you? What is the determining factor about which you live? What is the basis? What are you rooted in, right? But for those, even more for those who do believe, call themselves Christians, disciples, followers, my question becomes, are you close? Yes, you believe, but are you close? Are you following him? Do you know what he says in these situations? Do you know how it looks to walk with him? Because as he says, my sheep know my voice. And a lot of times we know of God, we believe in God, but we don't follow God. We don't trust God. We don't abide with God, which he talks about in John chapter 15. But as we talked about last time, or as I talked about the manufactured life, like, are we determining what we want to do with our vehicles, or are we going by what the manual says? And that leads to, what is leading us? Is it our feelings? Is it our heart? Is it the things that we the world tells us? And so that is what leads people astray, because Jesus says here that there is a pasture that he is leading us to. And He's not only going to take us there, but by following his voice is how we're going to get there. I mean, he says, but they will never follow a stranger. Well, a lot of times we follow strangers. We follow strange ideals. When I say strange, I mean anything that is outside of God is strange to our spirit, our human spirit, which seeks and yearns after God, right? It yearns to be in connection and yearns to be in communion with Him. And that is why a lot of times we feel a void. We feel FEEL, a void, because we're yearning for something that this world can't offer. And a lot of times we feel the void, FILL. I'm only spelling it so y'all can know what I'm saying. We feel the void with things that we see, that we've been taught, that we experience, or that have pushed us away. So instead of following the path to get to the pasture that He has for us, we try to find our own pasture. We get to a place where certain ideals and doctrines or trends or whatever, they they entice us, they trigger us, and because there's a desire for wholeness, for fulfillment, for even modified goodness, for lack of better phrasing. But it's not the true goodness, it's not the real pasture. And so we go and we seek pasture for something that ain't going to be beneficial to us. And as we go and we get to that pasture, we lose sight of the voice, or we lose connection. There's a distance between us and Christ. There's a distance between us and goodness. There's a distance between us and righteousness. And then we start formulating what is right to us. And that's why I ask the questions. What is the basis? We have to be honest. Like, what is determining where you go? And so as we go through this, the question is, what is leading you? And Christ is saying, let me lead. Let me tell you. So He says, the sheep will know my voice. My sheep know my voice, and they will not follow a stranger. So if we are following things that are not of God, the question becomes, do we know His voice? Do we know what things are of God, first and foremost? But in order to determine that, we got to know what His voice is. We got to know what His word says. We got to know His nature. We got to know His essence. We got to be in His presence. We got to do all these things, right? And I know a lot of people don't like talking about, or they have certain feelings when it comes to topics such as going to church, reading the Bible, praying, fasting, and things of that nature. But those are avenues for us to utilize to connect with Him. And there are other things, we call them spiritual disciplines. And I'll probably do a video about spiritual disciplines because that's been heavy over the last 6 months of my life. But these spiritual disciplines ultimately cultivate a connection between us and God through His Spirit. And in that, we start learning His voice. In that, we start learning what is not right, what is right, what is holy, what is not holy. We start to be shaped and molded and being transformed into His image and His likeness, which is ultimately what He is after. So we got to know His voice in order to know what to do and what not to do. So the question becomes, do we know His voice? One, are we spending time? Two, once you know, are you following? Are you being obedient to the voice, right? Because a lot of times we know what's right. We know what's good. We know what, as the old folks say, what thus says the Lord. But even in monotons, we know the ways of God, but we don't do. Even people who don't believe know what is right. A child who writes on the wall, for example, 7 times out of 10 knows that is wrong, because when they're confronted about it, it's a let me hide this. And so I use that example because we have an idea of what is good. We might not know to the fullest extent, but we have an idea. It is by which we choose to listen or not listen, which determines, are we following what is good? Are we following what is not good? So once we know the voice, or we can at least understand the voice, are we following the voice? Are we following the voice of God, or are we following the voice of what we used to? Are we following the voice of what we've seen? Are we following the voice of what society tells us? what voice are we following? I love back in the Old Testaments when they would have like legit prophets, right? And I ain't talking about people who just call themselves prophet, right? But true prophets who were hearing from God. They were sought. He had a chosen people that he would speak through to go talk to the people, the masses, talk to kings, talk to whatever, people that needed to get a specific message, right? And so once they got that, you were held to that standard, like you've been told. Now, because everything is so what is the word? Is so saturated with people who, oh, I know what's right, know the way, got what's right, and this is how it should be. The voice of God has been muddy. Not that his voice is muddy, but our hearing of it, we can't hear it. It's chaos. It's him talking, and it's a lot of crackling that's going on, and we can't understand. It's a lot of static in the way. So we got to separate ourselves from those things so that we can test and see what is the voice of God sound like? What is his way? And then so we can obey it. And it don't always feel good. A lot of times it don't feel good. I'm gonna be real with you. Being told you're wrong feels good to no one. No one. No one. However, once you understand that this is for correction, so I can be better, so I can progress on the path that God has laid out for me, so that my car can last for a long time and operate as it was purpose and designed to, then I'm gonna do it. It's not always a pleasing feeling, but it will be pleasurable in the end. Even if it's not pleasing, it will be purposeful. I get it and I'll follow. That is one of the things that he's saying. My sheep know my voice and they follow. They don't follow strange things. So we got to stop following the strange things. That then goes, and I'm guilty of this. What paths have we taken outside of God? When have we been following, but then ventured off? And I'm gonna get a little personal with y'all, and then I'll get personal about myself. There are a lot of people out here who don't do things to help them hear God's voice because of their experiences and what they don't want to feel. And I'm not here to minimize people's pain, people's trauma, people's experiences. But for those who say, I don't believe because of people, I don't believe because I seen someone else do this, that is something that we have to address. What has knocked you off your path? It's not that your path is going to be easy. It's not that your path, is going to not be full of hurdles or hills, because those things you got to climb. But if we can determine, where did I get off the path, or where did I take this turn? Where was I straight? And then all of a sudden, yeah, I wasn't so straight. Things got left. It might be from that experience. It might be from that person. It might be from what you've seen. It might be that church you went to that wasn't preaching, and not just preaching, but acting and operating in sound doctrine and godly principle. Maybe it was that experience, that trauma, that abuse from people who claim to be followers of Christ, but truly were following their own path. So for those who have allowed themselves to depart from the path of God and the path of following behind him because of experience, we got to address that. You got to address it. We got to see what paths we've taken. Also, I'll get personal. I have I won't say an addictive personality, but when I enjoy something, that's all I want to do. And one of these things that has been is like when you play the games on your phone and you can buy the little microtransactions, or if you playing the game on Xbox or PS5, you can get the microtransaction. It's to help you if you play 2K, help your player, or if it's you playing a specific game, it's like to get extra stuff, and it advances you in the game, or it helps you get to a place you want to get to. And I've made a lot of microtransaction over the last 5 years since COVID. COVID was the worst thing that happened to me because now I have idle time. And so I'm playing games and I've done that, right? But then I start getting into like, oh, I'm gonna pay a little $1 here. I'm gonna pay $5 here. I got extra money this month. I'm gonna pay $50 for this pack and I'm gonna see what I get from it. And now those things start adding up. But guess what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to be debt free. I'm trying to be financially wealthy. I want to be stable financially, right? Those microtransactions are diverting me from the path because now I'm spending money that could be used for something else. And so I use that as a bit of vulnerability and transparency to illustrate the points that it's not always the big things, it's the small things. And then you start making concessions for, well, I can do this because I know I'm going to get paid on the 15th. Or I can do this because it ain't that much. But that one, two, $5 ends up 50, 100, 200, right? Over a month. And you're like, dang, that's 200. That could have went to debt. That is a path that I've taken outside of God, right? And I told y'all last time that this conversations is not always going to be just straight spiritual, spiritual, spiritual. These are practical things that we can use. So financially, God doesn't want me to be in debt, but I keep choosing debt. I keep choosing not to attack it with the fervor and the passion that I need to because I've taken alternate paths. I've made concessions of why this ain't that bad. But when I'm in his presence, there's a conviction. When the Spirit talks, it's like, and sometimes as soon as you purchase it, for me, it's like, dang, I shouldn't have did that. And then you get in the battle, which I ain't trying to get into. But ultimately, am I following the voice that's there? And next time, what am I going to do? I'll finish up with this. So I'm Coach Jones, right? And that derived from literally me coaching basketball. I've been coaching for almost a decade now, a little bit less than that. And so in my coaching, I'm very strict and I'm very loud. I'm one of those coaches, you gonna hear me. But the kids love me. All the teams I've coached, they've loved me. Nonetheless, because I coach with such passion, a boisterous voice, my team know. They know when coach is talking. And I ain't talking about just like when we in the gym practicing and it's just me. I'm talking about when we out there with a whole bunch of people. And we out there with a whole bunch of people and the fans and this and that, they hear my voice. I give you an example. And on my son's team, I coach now, he's in middle school, but it's a 4th through 6th grade team. I've only been coaching them for roughly a month. I've been giving them certain skills and strategies and principles and trying to instill this mindset of we don't back down from a challenge. We force the issue. We bring a certain type of play. I need your mentality. I need a specific mindset, a particular mindset. And so I coach with a lot of passion. And 4th through 6th graders, I haven't had them for years. I've only had them for a month. Maybe 2 months now. It's a lot of parents. It's a lot of stuff going on. You ever been to a basketball game? It's a lot of stuff going on. When I speak, they know. I'm talking about you can be in the stands yelling, Johnny, do this. Bryden, my son, do this. AJ, do this, whatever, right? When I say, hey, press up, run there, swing the ball, whatever I'm saying, they hear it. It's not habit. These are 4th through 6th graders who don't have a lot of basketball experience, but they know and they hear. Their heads turn, and when I'm talking, okay, that's what we doing. Or, hey, timeout, they coming to me. Hey, what are we doing? Why are we not doing this? Open your arms, get low, box out. They doing it because they hear my voice. It's not the fact that I'm boisterous. It's they've gotten used to hearing it so much that they have to respond. But mind you, I said there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. The gym ain't quiet. So we got to get to a place where God's voice, we're so in tune with it that we hear it in the midst of chaos, in the midst of everybody speaking, in the midst of some people telling you this, your close ones telling you that, your feelings telling you this, distractions here and there. We got to get to a point where I hear God's voice. And it's like, now I have a decision to make. And I'm going to follow that decision. I'm going to follow that voice. That's going to be my decision, is to follow the voice. But if we're not around it and it's just another voice, I'm not going to follow it. If I'm not coach, then they not going to listen. So we got to accept, is Christ Lord or not? Is God God or not? And if he is, then we have to understand we have to submit to that. And he has something to say about everything. That pain that you're still dealing with, he has something to say about that. Not only how to heal and how to deal with it, but how to respond to it. how not to let that shape you going forward. The purpose that you have in life and the things you want to be, he has something to say about that. What you need to stop doing, what you need to do, he has something to say about that. He has a plan for an abundant life. And oftentimes we're not in it. We're not in the greener pastures. We're not in the pastures he's designed because we have went our own way, because we don't know his voice or we don't listen to the voice. So that was a lot. It's a lot to digest. And as a coach, sometimes the practice sessions ain't always easy, but I pray that you will listen and it'll help you grow. So until next time, lead up.